Hi, I'm Mitch. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Restoration Road. We're here at Hinkle Fieldhouse at Butler University, the storied gymnasium, the one you saw in the final game of Hoosiers, and if these walls could talk. In fact, there's a lot of construction going on these walls, and we even have players working out on the court, just as should happen in every gymnasium. You know, this is a storied program, but today we're going to get into a story that's just amazing, a coaching story of Brad Stevens, achieving so much at such a young age, pursuing the call of basketball on his life to develop young men. And I'm so thrilled that you have the opportunity to join us to hear how Brad Stevens develops players for Christ at Butler University basketball. Brad, thank you so much for joining us today, the head coach of the Butler Bulldogs. What a story you have, and I just want to thank you for joining us to talk about how you apply your faith to the game of basketball.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
Thank you. Let's pick it up when you're little. Now, your mom claims that when you were in kindergarten, there was this passion for basketball, and you were even watching tape games before you went to kindergarten in the morning.
You know, she claims that. I assume that was probably right. You know, I grew up a big basketball fan. I do remember watching mostly the state teams, including the Pacers, but then all of the different state teams play as I was growing up, and I certainly loved it. Fell in love with it early on, and I've said many times one of my favorite days of my life was when I walked down the street and saw a new goal up in my driveway. And that's as good as it gets for a young kid. And so first thing we did when we bought a new house a few years back was put a goal up for my son, who
Amen.
I just like shooting with him. So that's a great memory, and I loved it from an early age.
That's awesome. I don't think a lot of people realize in Zionsville Community High School, you lit it up. You set records in steals, scoring, assists, three-point field goals. I guess you averaged 32 points a game in a sectional tournament. There's no question that you not only were passionate about the game, but you were dedicated to it.
I mowed lawns in the summers. We tried our best to be done mowing by noon. And then we'd go over to a buddy's house. We'd eat grilled cheese or PB&J, and then go out to his court. And he had about a 40-foot full court in his backyard.
Oh.
We'd play, most of the afternoon. And then my goal at home, we had lights, and so we could play into the night if we wanted to. And obviously got in the gym as much as we could. But it was always fun. It was just always fun to be in the gym. It was a great source of camaraderie with my friends growing up, and you cherish those days and you relish those days because you didn't have any responsibility.
Yeah.
All you did was you go out and mow a couple lawns and then play all day.
Yep. Growing up in Indiana basketball, I did the same thing and was always about where was that game going to be.
Yep.
My high school team made it 1 point away. James Blackman beat us by 1 point from going to the Final Four when high school basketball was one class, as maybe God intended in Indiana. But we talked earlier that you've always seen yourself as a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
You grew up in the Methodist Church, and can you talk a little bit about your earliest memories of church?
Some of my better memories and more dynamic memories from those ages are the youth groups, and whether it be the middle school groups or the high school groups or the mission trips as part of a high school group. Went on 2 when I was in high school, and just unbelievable times and unbelievable memories, and a great way to get yourself and your perspective in the right order. I look forward to the day where my kids are old enough where maybe we can all do that together.
Well, you ended up at DePauw University, had a great basketball career there. You were academic All-American, All-Conference, multiple years, and you majored in economics. Is that right?
I did major in economics. I don't know about those other two. I wasn't that good. I was a decent student and a decent player on some decent teams. We never had great teams when I was there. Ironically, the best team we had was probably my senior year, and we had a bunch of young guys that, when they were seniors, ended up going to the Final 8 of the national tournament.
Oh, my.
So we took a lot of pride in that from afar, but great experience, great friendships. My coach, who's coached me and started there in 1992, still there. It's one of the great things about the Division III level is there's a lot a lot more stability than at the Division I level, although that certainly is, they would probably argue that, some too, but you know, it's great that he's still there because he had a great impact on all of us, and you know, I still get together with a lot of those guys.
What your coach did on staying there has to influence you a little bit in your longevity here at Butler, don't you think?
I like where I am. I'm thankful for where I am. And I've just been given a great opportunity. And so you're just trying to make the most of it.
That's awesome. You take that economics degree to go to Eli Lilly, and do you work in marketing?
I worked in marketing.
And somehow this basketball call is laid on your life. Talk about that.
Well, I think my passion was always competitive sports. My passion was always basketball being the #1 competitive sport that I liked the most. That being said, I grew up in an area that was heavily influenced by Eli Lilly and heavily influenced by the positive impact that Eli Lilly had, not only on the community, but on those families' lives of employees from Eli Lilly. And so when I was offered a job at the end of my junior year in college because I did an internship, and I accepted it right on the spot.
It's a big company, known all over the world, and they offer you a job your junior. That's a big deal.
And it was unique because it was in Indianapolis, and it was near home, and I knew that I'd just go to school my senior year, get my degree, and I had a job. So it was a fun thing going into your senior year to know that pressure was off.
Sure.
That being said, second semester of my senior year, I started to realize that, you know, maybe I should take a couple education classes since I have some electives left, just in case I want to go coach, and I did.
Oh wow!
I coached a young group of kids, I think that summer. Took the summer off before starting in August at Lilly, and worked camps here at Butler, among other places, just to put a little extra food and golf money in my pocket.
Amen.
Yeah.
So, how long are you at Eli Lilly before you realize, hey, I want to coach?
Well, I think by the middle of the basketball season, I was itching. And by April, I was ready to leave. And I had talked to anybody necessary outside of Lilly. So I had talked to Coach Mata, I had talked to my family, I had talked to a couple of other people that had offered me opportunities as a graduate assistant at the Division III level. And so I really weighed those things. And when Coach Mata said, hey, you can come here and volunteer, I can't promise anything will come available, but you still know that you're at least in the program, you're still going to have an assignment to do every day, you're still going to have a job to do, and if you prove yourself, hopefully when the time comes that a position opens up, they'll think about hiring you. Then I felt like this was the best opportunity. Butler had just come off of a great run with Barry Collier. He had just gone to his 3rd out of 4th NCAA tournaments. He had just been beat by Florida by a point on a last-second shot. I knew some of the guys that were playing here. I played with Brandon Miller's older brother growing up. I knew some of the other guys that were in the program, so I felt like it was a good time to transition to that.
I love how you sought wise counsel before you made the big decision. Proverbs talks about how it's wise to get input from other people. I assume you prayed about it, and it just seems to me like there was this leading that you could almost say is from God, for you to be used to develop young men.
No question. A lot of time spent in prayer, a lot of time spent asking people their opinions. But the best sign for me came from the standpoint that everybody at Lilly said, go, do it. And you know, if it doesn't work out and you want to ultimately come back, we'll try our best to make that work. And so it was really almost invigorating to watch all of them and to hear all of them say go. You know, the day I left, they gave me a signed basketball with everybody I'd worked with.
Oh wow!
And so it's kind of fun to look back on, and I still hear from some of them.
Oh, that's cool.
Pretty regularly, and I know a lot of them come to games that I don't hear from. A lot of them send their kids to camp. But it was a good place to work. If I was 30, I probably wouldn't have left. But I was 22. I didn't have a family yet. I was responsible only for me financially. I had saved some money. I had some buddies that lived here in town that said I could rent the 3rd room for a cheap price, so I just did it.
That's awesome. So you come in with Thad Mata. He moves on, and Todd Licklider becomes the head coach, and he immediately moves you to assistant.
Thad had hired me soon after I volunteered in a capacity that's a non-coaching capacity, very administrative oriented. You know, during the season, very much focused on travel, splicing film for the assistants. You know, they just tell you what to cut up and you cut it up. But all the time you're taking notes and learning. Can't be on the court, but you're sitting in the gym and taking notes and watching those guys work. And it was really a good time, and it was really a great time to learn. If I would have gone straight to an assistant, I wouldn't have been ready. I came into this thinking I knew everything about basketball. I soon found out I knew nothing from a coaching perspective. So 9 months of an internship basically in coaching, and then when Todd got the job, he moved me up. I felt like I was more prepared, although I still wasn't probably as prepared as I should have been to be a Division I assistant, especially at a place like Butler.
I assume Todd invests in you and trains you along the way, and then you make that great run, and he gets offered the job at Iowa. And is it true that the players went to the AD and say, hey, Coach Stevens needs to be the coach?
You know what? The players went to the AD and just said we need to have it in-house. And so, you know, all three of us assistants were young guys, and any of the two, you know, LaVall Jordan, Matthew Graves, who were here at the time, Matthew's still here, they would have done a great job as well. And Matthew continues to do a great job. LaVall's an assistant at Michigan now, doing great things for them. But I think that, you know, to go back to the Todd and the impact he had on me is incredible. Without question, he's been the most influential, not only coach, but person in my professional life. He treated our guys right. He was very devout in his faith. He was very, he just did things the right way. And for a young guy to be working in those circumstances in this industry, that's a really powerful thing. There's no gray in Todd Lickliter. He's very much a black and white person. We still communicate all of the time. He had a huge influence on me.
I studied Proverbs on what the Hebrew word for discipline entailed. And as you look at the context of its uses throughout Proverbs, it really comes down to what I would call 4 turns around the track of discipline. And the reason I'm sharing it is I think that this is what Coach Lickliter did with you. And although you might not articulate it this way, might articulate it a different way, I think it's what you're doing with your players. But the first is teach. And teach is I do, you watch. So it'd be like Coach saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. Turn 2 is train. You start developing skill sets to grow those things like you would in a practice. And from an apprentice standpoint, it's I do, you help. And then test, turn 3 is the opportunity to fail. So it would be like a scrimmage in essence, or a game. And it's you do, I help. And then we get to transform, which is really the correction. After we have the opportunity to fail, the things that need corrected come to the top, we remove those. And so it's the transformation, and our job's to get ourselves out of a job. And that is you do, I watch.
Sure.
Or some will say you do, I pray. So it looks like Coach Lickliter and many others did that with you, and you're doing that with young men today.
He was really hands-off. We got to make mistakes a lot, and that was a really good thing in our growth. Maybe not good for our group at the time, but he let me, he certainly did. And I paid a lot of attention to him when he was teaching because I thought he was incredibly insightful. Coach Mata as well. But I do think, yeah, you're right. We've always said when freshmen come in, they're unconsciously incompetent. They don't know what they don't know. And then the next step is unconsciously competent. The next step is consciously competent. You're still kind of trying, testing, scrimmaging, trying to get better. And then when you become unconsciously competent and you can go out there and perform,
I love that.
Understanding your task, it's a really impressive thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's hard to get there. Some guys never do, but the best do.
Well, Coach Lickliter goes to Iowa. You do become the head coach. I guess my first question about that is, what did you change?
I think anytime you have a new team, you have to tweak, change, and mold to that personnel. And certainly when we're 5 years now removed, there's going to be a lot of tweaks and changes. Things that you picked up along the way that you like, things that you don't like, that you discard because of your personnel. May be great with one team, not great with another.
Exactly.
So you always are changing that side of things. Foundationally, we've tried to remain very consistent. We've added one core value out of our 5, and that would be we added a value of accountability. We think that's really important to recruit and to coach guys that are accountable in all of their actions. And then, one of the things that I think what we've tried to do is just say the guys that came before us, coaches and players, invested quite a bit into this. And a lot of the rewards that we're reaping are for their efforts. And we appreciate that, but it's our job to advance it. And so we're constantly working to advance it. And I do think our style has changed over time. But it's not because we're choosing it necessarily. It's because you're trying to best fit your players.
Well, a sports psychology professor at Brown University wrote a book called Mindset, and she says that we're either fixed or open as players and coaches. And it sounds to me like what you just described there is more of an open mindset. I'm going to look at my players and determine, do I need to tweak something to do the best for what I have?
And I don't know if it's the same book, but Carol Dweck wrote one, and hers is also called Mindset from Stanford, and hers is, do you go after the trophy, or are you trying to go after growth? And our thing has always been go after growth and embrace the journey, enjoy the journey, because it is something to think about in the middle of a long process.
Okay, I help coach Class A high school girls basketball in a Christian school, Lakewood Park Christian School in Auburn, Indiana. And what you just said, I want every player, I want her to hear this, because I'll tell them that the structure of an offense, or defense for that matter, is that you're going to play within it, that it's the journey, not the destination, that'll bring you prosperity. So as you were going to set that screen, as you were going to make that cut, you need to see what's unfolded, because it's the process. Division I men's basketball, winning is paramount. And you just made a radical paradigm shift when you said the process is more important. You won, I think, 30 games in 2007, right? Your first year head coaching, and you're the youngest coach to do so many things, the winning records, the back-to-back national championship games. But when you went to the national championship against Duke, and Gordon Hayward's shot goes in and out, and you lose by 2, it looks like that was an unbelievable effort by your guys.
Yep.
But they didn't win the championship, but they might have won something much greater. Can you talk about what you said afterwards?
We said all along, it's not what you get in the end, it's what you become through the journey. And you don't change that based on your results. So if he hits that shot and we win it, it doesn't change the fact that that trophy means something, the banners mean something, it's all something to rally around, but it's not what brings you back. It's not what makes you have a reunion with your teammates. The best experiences on teams certainly often involve winning, because it continues your season and it amps it up and you get even tighter together and everything else. But that, the reunions are the fun part.
I felt like God gave me this acronym that I gave to my daughters for sports, and then also share with the girls on the team, and it's the acronym PLAY. And just real quick, it's pray, learn, you take something from the Bible, and then A, apply it, you make it sticky to what you do inside those 4 lines. But the reason I'm sharing this is this Y that I think is biblical is yield. Yield the outcomes to God. At the end of the day, we can only control our input to the process. And I just love how that's who you are, and you're trying to build that in young men and who they are. They discover who they are on the journey.
Yep.
Well, you accomplished something that very few have ever done, and that is to go back-to-back national championships. How did you do that? With Gordon Hayward leaving after a sophomore year, what kind of strategy or mindset or vision did you cast for that?
The first one was surreal because it had never been done before, and you're coming back to your hometown, which is really unique. And it was an unbelievable experience. But we had such momentum going into that tournament. We had won 20 straight games, and by the national championship game, we won 25. Our guys didn't think they could lose. Not one guy didn't think that shot was going in. It was a great feeling. There was never any doubt. There was never any what ifs. It was just go play and beat the next opponent. And that was a fun group. Now, that was a really talented group, most talented team ever to play at Butler. The next year, it was a little bit less talented just simply because you lose a lottery pick. And, you know, and Willie Beasley, also a very good player who was a senior the year before. Avery Jukes, a very good player, the senior year before. So you lost some guys that had played a huge role in that run. To go back is, you know, to go back to the Final Four and ultimately the championship is probably the most special thing I've ever been a part of, because that group probably shouldn't have been there. And they just found a way. They just fought, scratched, clawed. We had unbelievable leadership. You know, Matt Howard is not the best basketball player you've ever seen play the game. I wouldn't trade him for anybody that we've ever, you know, that anybody has, because he gives everything every day at the highest level. And his leadership that year and his class's leadership and their growth in fulfilling roles that were left to be filled by players that had left were, boy, oh boy, it was special. It was special to be a part. I couldn't believe we were sitting there where we were, especially because in mid-season we were a good team, but not a great team. We just got better and better and better.
A lot of people have compared you to legendary coach John Wooden because of this calm demeanor that you have. And I think it was Matt Howard that was interviewed, and I think other players have said it as well, that when they come to the huddle, there's this calm demeanor about you, that you're not yelling and screaming at them about a mistake. Can you talk a little bit about how you apply that to the heat and the intensity of the game?
I'm not foul proof on that. I've been known to raise my voice on occasion back at a huddle. But I do think this. I think certain situations definitely dictate that you are very even keel. In the NCAA tournament, it's going to be one of those situations. If you're bouncing all over the place, if you're hanging on every call that's made, if you're too concerned with a layup that your team missed 3 possessions ago, or concerned with what happened 2 possessions, your team's going to see it. The more on edge you get, they're already on edge. There's a lot of people watching, and so that's part of it. You think about those things and you prepare for those things. The hard part is the middle of the season, when you're playing in a game that, you know, people on the outside think you should win, which as a coach you don't think any game's a gimme, and certainly not a given. And you have to figure out a way to maintain that through some ups and downs of those games. I think those are the hard ones. But it helps when you've got guys like Matt, guys that play the right way, guys that give to one another. Just makes everybody better.
With all the success you've had, you became a popular commodity in the coaching world, yet you decided to stay at Butler. Can you talk about how you process those opportunities?
Well, obviously with any opportunity you process it in a couple of different ways. Number one is what's right for our family and the people that we care most about. The people that I care most about are obviously my family, my friends, and the people in this community, and the players and people I work with. Those are the people that I spend all the time with, and I really care about them. You spend a lot of time in discussion and prayer, just like you did, you know, when you made that jump a few years back. But 99% of the time, it comes down to, you know, the only reason you'd consider leaving is ultimately persuaded by the dollars in front of you.
Yeah.
And I think that's, if there's a reason to leave that's not that's different. But if that's the only reason, it doesn't make any sense. And this place has been great to us. We don't sweat for our next meal. We're really lucky in this day and age and in this economy. And so, you know, we appreciate what we do have. We're thankful for what we do have. Get a chance to coach in a great place, get a chance to coach really good players who are good people, and work for not only good people but tremendous bosses. I think my athletic director, president, is as good a leadership as anybody has in the country.
Wow. You invest in each kid basically where he is. You meet him where he is, kind of like the Apostle Paul talks about. Can you talk about how you connect your faith or the Word of God, the people of God, the Spirit of God to each player individually or as a team?
Well, I think the most important thing, number one, is they know that I support them and I care about them. I brought them here to be great representatives of Butler. With that in mind, not all 14 or 15 guys are going to have the exact same background or maybe the same set of beliefs. But I think there are a lot of things that, from an interface standpoint, we can all agree on.
Exactly.
And all of those things end up promoting what becomes a good team. Our players know where I am. They know what I believe. But I think they also feel like we're respectful of each of their individual beliefs. And I hope that's the case.
Coach, before I let you go, you got to talk about the Butler way.
Okay. Well, I think, the Butler way, it's been fun for me to watch evolve. Because when I came here in 2000, it wasn't necessarily a school-wide slogan, but it was very much being talked about in here. And I remember Coach Mata talking about it all the time. And I remember when Coach Mata left, Coach Licklider and I sitting in his office, and Coach Licklider putting it to words, really for the first time, other than the values that were on the wall. What does it truly mean? Trying to come up with a couple bullet points, paragraphs to define it. And to watch it grow, be embraced, and ultimately be a slogan for our school in a real positive way that's been embraced globally has been a lot of fun from our standpoint. And to me, it is very simply just do the next right thing and just try your best to be a great teammate, try your best to work to improve, let the results take care of themselves, and embrace the process.
Amen. Brad, thank you so much for being with us today. You're God's man. You're developing young men for Christ through the game of basketball. And we're going to be praying for you to continue to develop those guys. And thank you so much for being with us.
Appreciate it.
When Jesus walked this earth, his dominant mantra was the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is God's divine reign, rule, and order in the hearts and lives of people on this earth now and in the future. Simply put, it's God's will for your life. And when Jesus left, when he ascended and provided his Spirit, he said, I want you to do one thing. I want you to go make disciples. And the way he taught and the way he modeled is that we make disciples who are making disciples. That's how we know that success has taken place. I can't help but think about that when I hear Coach Brad Stevens talk about the process being more important than the destination. When he talks about relationship being the key element of success. Paul wrote in Romans 8:29 that success is being shaped like Christ. So I want to ask you today, are you being shaped like Christ? Is that your definition of success? And who are the people in your life that he's placed strategically for you to disciple so that they can go make disciples? Take this to heart and think about how you can apply the concept of multiplication in your life today.